Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Honey Badger Arcade. How y'all doing? I got some stuff I want to talk about. Maybe I'll do some gaming. I'm hoping that some folks from the Honey Badger Discord will be available for some Helldivers, but otherwise I'll probably just do some Devil May Cry. Basically, whatever the most triggering video games are right now, I'm gonna play them. That's kind of what I'm gonna do with this channel while I talk about what is happening in our culture with our hobbies. And I don't just mean video games, I mean like anything that men find themselves drawn to: film, literature, television, video games, music, tabletop gaming, miniature gaming, whatever it is, sports. There will be people that will try to meddle and make that impossible for men to enjoy. And we have to understand that it's kind of a part of life. It's what we're going to be dealing with. But we have to remain adamant. We have to remain vigilant, and we have to tell these people where they can shove it. So just a quick shout out to the Sweet Baby Ink Detected Steam group. If you could check it out. I did put a link in the last stream to it. I can put it in this one as well if you need it. I did a stream yesterday where I talked a little bit about it, but I ended up playing Helldivers 2 for like 3 hours, which is way more than I expected to, but I was having too much fun. So yeah, there is that if you want to check it out. Shout out to them. Also, they have created a Discord server, and I am in their Discord server as well. I'm watching things. It looks like a lot of people are getting activated by this stuff. For example, I want to say I saw the Short Fat Otaku and Side Scrollers did a whole thing on it. I'm a little concerned because there are people who are involved with GamerGate that were pretty, like, let's say, feminist friendly. And they thought, oh, we'll just deal with the ethics thing and that's it. But it's kind of like a please don't look too closely at the problem. You know, people that are like, well, I just want like things to just sort of, I just want to stop getting attacked by the journalists. I'm not worried about their politics. I don't want this to become political. I don't want, you know, like to have to fight with people or like deal with the concepts of the political shit that's happening. I don't want to confront that reality. I just want to play my video games, and I just want to be left alone. And I said in 2014, I said, if you don't confront the ideology, this will never stop. The ethical problems with GamerGate that GamerGate was railing against were downstream from their political ideologies. The people who are doing this don't care about video games. They hate you. They want to change the industry. At first, they were bloggers on Tumblr. Then they were games journalists. Now they are games designers and they are games consultants. It's just going to keep getting worse until we start saying no, and you'll have to stop supporting franchises that you previously enjoyed. I mean, you know, for me, I just give an example. There were very few people who were as much of a comic book nerd as I was when I was growing up. I loved comic books. It was the thing that made me want to draw. Okay, it was the thing that got me into art. And it was like, you know, what I loved, right? And I grew up with it, and I changed with it as it changed. And then some people, like, they look back on the 90s as their favorite period. I think that's more of a millennial thing. Not for me. I was actually losing interest in the 90s because there were other problems, like artists taking precedent over writers, like, you know, the kind of everything was starting to look the same. But that's a different issue. But when the 2010s hit, the woke shit started creeping in, and this is way back, way before what was going on now. And I said, oh no, this is wrong. Something is wrong with these stories. These stories are there. It isn't like an organic change where you're like, you know, talking about things that are maybe there's just some stuff that's more relevant. Maybe you have characters holding cell phones, whereas before cell phones didn't exist and they were on like landlines or something. Like, you're adapting in that way. But it wasn't that. It was like a big push, you know, to like, that was an ideological push. And I kind of blame, and I don't want to get into too much of a tangent here, but I kind of blame the kind of artistic comic book writers for this stuff, the people like Alan Moore and the guys, oh, I can't remember his name now, but there's a few like kind of artsy fartsy comic book creators that were almost like anti whatever the mainstream was. Like they wanted to, oh, I'm going to take this thing that you love and I'm going to subvert it, you know, and that was going on back then. This is talking about the 80s, you know, and people will go back and they'll, oh, like Frank Miller is another example. They'll go back and they'll like make a defense of that. Oh, those books were masterpieces, etc. I think they were overrated. But aside from that, though, you can't deny how it impacted things, because you've taken something that was kind of nerdy and not popular, you know, and it was very niche for certain people. Well, I'm going to use comic books as my example, right? Which I like. I love the Fantastic Four. I loved Spider-Man. I loved the X-Men. I liked all of it and all the cheese that came with it. I loved Superman, comics, whatever. And then, you know, you get Watchmen and you get V for Vendetta and you get The Dark Knight Returns and Sin City. And it's fine. Like, I was like, oh, well, this is like a different thing for different people, right? Then you get Mouse and you get Strangers in Paradise and Love and Rockets. And again, I was like, that's fine. Like, you know, I think that you can have a genre for every kind of person, you know, Fritz the cat, whatever. You can have a genre for anyone as long as they're okay with it, you know, Cherry Pop Tart, Archie comics. But then you get to the point where people are looking at this kind of sophisticated crap and they're saying, oh, you know, why aren't these mainstream books more like this? Why isn't Spider-Man more like, you know, The Authority? Why isn't the Justice League more like Watchmen? And that was when I really started to take issue, because I was like, well, look, you know, if you want to do it for your thing, go ahead, but now you're trying to make my thing into your thing. And I think that's when it was going on. And again, I'm not saying those were bad books. Like Avengers Disassembled, I think, was one where they kind of like subverted everything and they killed off a bunch of people. And, you know, and then you had like, there were all of these events where you had heroes fighting heroes, you know, like, you know, Civil War. And then it was like X-Men versus Avengers or something like that. And it was just like setting people against each other. And then you had the villains that were like, you know, always villains. They became like kind of heroes, you know. You got like the Thunderbolts and the Suicide Squad's kind of old, but you get things like that. And then those things that would be okay in isolation, like you had, let's experiment with this thing, kind of like What If, you know, where you well, let's just try this story out, and we'll say it's not part of the canon, we'll have it completely, you know, end there, and we'll treat it like an alternate dimension and never revisit it again. That became the center. They started bringing it towards the center. And that's what this is a lot of this is like taking the fringe and making it into the center. And when you do that, you alienate people, because people are like, well, you know, I just want my Peter Parker back. Or I just want my Captain America to be like what he was, to be like, you know, the symbol of sort of American values, you know, of like liberty and individualism and things like that, right? Not necessarily political, but they saw it as political. Like, oh no, we're gonna make him a Nazi, right? And they did, right? And this was going on for a while. Female Thor, you got, you know, they made like Iceman gay, and for some reason it was, you know, more of was it like a bigger problem for him to be outed as gay than to be outed as a mutant, which is them completely missing the point of them being mutants to begin with. And this is decades ago, you know, when I was talking about that. And now we, you know, it was happening in video games too. It starts off, you get people like Anita, and this is basically how it's almost like how women work. You know, you get people that they come into a space, they claim to like it. They start complaining about it. Oh, you know, I like it, but can it be a little bit less sexist? Can we have a little bit less racism? Isn't this like a trope? Isn't this the stereotype? Isn't this reinforcing, you know, negative ideas? Can you change it? And then, you know, because most of the time, and it's not just like because gamers tend to be, you know, like nice people, but I think that men generally tend to be accommodating. They're like, well, okay, you know, I don't we'll make room for what you want. And then the women just ask for more. Well, not just women, but like feminists, like people that, some men too, that like otherwise wouldn't like have any interest in this stuff, are like asking for more changes, and they want to change, you know, the paints, and they want to change the drapes, and they want to change the tablecloths, and then all of a sudden it doesn't look like your thing anymore, and they don't like it either because they're not really supporting it. And I said that like the problems with games journalism is, it's not that. The problem is the ideas of the people. Most of the people who get involved with this stuff, they don't even like what they're reporting on. They don't like film. They don't like television. They want to be writers, but they think that they're the smartest person in the room. They think that they are the ones that are meant to do great things with their artistic vision, but they're stuck with like a bachelor's in, you know, in I don't know, in English or in journalism, and they can't use it. So they basically just write about how much they hate the people who are successful. It's like, it's envy from the get-go, and it doesn't really have a way of coming out except in what they are doing, which is tearing everything down. So Super D says, holy shit, you remember Cherry Pop-Tart? Yeah, I used to see it like behind the counter, you know, along with like Heavy Metal Magazine and some of the stuff by I can't remember his name, Milo Manara. He was like a artist that did sort of like, you know, adult rated stuff. It was probably pretty tame compared to the shit you can find on the internet nowadays. And I know it was, but that was pretty edgy, right, for the time. And again, you know, like the people who illustrated for Playboy, they would do, I don't remember their names, but they would do some sexual stuff. But and I didn't have a problem with that. I never said, you know, like you can't do that. All I wanted was for people to keep like their shit separate. Like, you know, people who love, if I like you know, superhero comic books, you can say it's corny if you want to, but don't like change my shit, you know, like that, like do your thing, go have your Love and Rockets, go have your The Crow. I mean, I thought The Crow was pretty good, but like you want, go ahead, the Ninja Turtles, whatever it is that you were into, right? Grendel, and I mean, there was room for all of that, you know? Anyway, Brian's woman impression is surprisingly accurate. Matthias Nordblad said, a lot of nerds also fall for female attention. They do, but I don't think it's just that. I think men generally, especially today, they're just way too accommodating. And they don't, the thing is too, is that they make the mistake of thinking that women have, or these women who get involved, these feminist women, they make this mistake of thinking that these women are operating in good faith, and they're just like, I just want to enjoy this thing with you. And of course, because like this thing that these guys are into is generally shunned, right, by people like, oh, what are you, a child, or you play video games? You know, like because of that, when anyone comes along in support, even though video games is very mainstream, but if anyone comes along in a general sort of support for this stuff, and they're like, yeah, I like video games, they're gonna jump at the chance. You know, like well, technically I still do. Like I used to play a lot of tabletop games, right? And I remember when I was like in my late teens, so this is a long time ago, I used to go to conventions. I go to conventions like Gen Con, which was like the biggest one in the Midwest. It was in Wisconsin, I think. No, it was Indiana, and then it moved to Wisconsin. So, but I was going to the one in Indiana, Wisconsin. If you went to a Gen Con in those days, people would be so hyped to meet other gamers, because it wasn't like we have the internet. Like we didn't have it like that back then. So you only saw these people at conventions, and they would have events all weekend, and people would try different games, and it was a very big deal. But it was also like you had people who were normally shut-ins, or at least they're very introverted, and there was the chance to get out, right? So if anyone, especially a girl, was like, I kind of want to try that. I mean, that the enthusiasm to bring them into the hobby was through the roof, but it also allowed for this kind of crap to happen, this entryism. And that's what this is. Blake Kaiser said, well, is the problem that American comic character stories don't end, unlike manga, i.e. Guts story will end, but Batman is forever? I don't know, because you can make finite stories as well. I don't think that's it. I think it's just like, I think that you can tell comic book stories forever. And what the purpose of it is that here's how I think it changes. You have to think about how the audience is sort of like supposed to grow. Okay, so I read X-Men comics. I'll just use X-Men as an example. I read the X-Men comics in the 80s mostly, right? And so when I think of the X-Men, I think of the X-Men of the time that I was reading the book. And when you become an adult, if you slack off, you stop reading, whatever, in general, the purpose of continuing the comic, other than to like make more money, but aside from that, I think you're supposed to grab the new audience. Like, so, if I had kids, then my kid would be reading whatever, the current issues of X-Men were, if they weren't crap like they are now. But if it was continuing, because the people who read the comics from the 60s, and the people who read the comics in the 70s, the people who read the comics in the 80s and the 90s, they were reading, even in the 90s, although to a lesser degree, they were reading in spirit the same stuff in spirit. The only thing that changes might be the costumes, the art style, maybe the roster if it's a team book like Avengers or X-Men or Fantastic Four, but generally it was the same stuff. Like, these characters in Western comics, like in superhero comics, specifically the big two, they're not supposed to change. You're supposed to see it as time kind of stands still for people. So Peter Parker, and I guess it's sort of like an inevitable problem, but like you have like things like where Peter Parker gets married and then, does he have a kid and this kind of thing. But I don't think it's necessary, because that's almost like holding on to the older audience, which, probably would have been expected to have like walked away from that and done something else, and maybe their children are doing. I think if we had kept up with it in that way, because my mom used to read Spider-Man comics when she was a kid, and so she was the one who got me into comics, right? But when she read them, they were very different. Like, she was reading like, the old 60s stuff with like the Vulture and Dr. Octopus and like the early villains. And of course, when I was reading them, those villains were still there, but I also was there for some of the later ones that came, like Venom, for example. But I think that that's how it would normally go. And again, I've said this before, like, manga's not safe from this stuff. Now, granted, there's a lot more, it's a lot less like by committee. Like, typically a mangaka is like the guy, he is the writer and he has a very small team, or he is the writer and the artist. Like, Rumiko Takahashi, for example, who created Urusei Yatsura or Lum. She created a bunch of different things. Ranma 1/2 was my favorite by her, but she's done Inuyasha, which I know is very popular with people. Like, some of these things are meant to end, but most of those could go on Ranma can go on forever, because it doesn't, and the kids will stay perpetually the same age. And nobody cares. Like, it doesn't have to conclude. It doesn't have to necessarily go anywhere if the story is meant to be episodic, I mean, if you could say that they do it with sitcoms, right? Like TV shows. The problem with that, though, is that the actors do age, right? So, if you watch, I don't know, any of the old sitcoms like Different Strokes or The Facts of Life or something, or The Cosby Show, you would have like they would try to keep the same characters, but over time, because the actors would age, they would have to like make changes. So maybe they would, I remember in Good Times, there was a little girl that was added to the show because the little boy was getting too old. And so, but they wanted to keep something that represented that same position in the family. And they've done that a few times. I think Full House did something like that too. But with The Simpsons, because it's animated, you can like, again, nothing has to change. And I think it can work. It can work for that. South Park never changed it. Yeah, South Park is another good example of that. Family Guy doesn't do that either. So anyway, what I'm really digressing, but my point is that none of these people that get involved with this stuff actually care about this stuff. So we're gonna look at some website things I want to show you guys. And by the way, here's JoJo. Look at him. All right. So this is Sweet Baby Inc. I went to the website before, talked about it on another stream, but there was some things I didn't really get into, so I thought I would read this, okay? So we all know Sweet Baby Inc. is involved with a lot of brands, and I think that, and you know, you do whatever you want to do, but if it was up to me, I would recommend that you do not support any of these developers. Full stop. I would just find different people. I have done that already with Disney and with Warner Brothers and with Sony. I think there might be some other, I'm talking about like studios, you know. If I see something that is worthy of support and it's like exceptional, like I heard Dune 2 is really good, you know, I might watch that. But I think on principle, like if I see something and I know this company has, especially Disney, Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, if they have especially come after the fans, there is no way in hell I'm going to give them another dime of my money. And I think you should apply that same logic to whatever you consume. Okay. Lat QCD says, lots of franchises I love, like Senran Kagura, are already dead. Did they make that woke? I have one of those. I have Senran Kagura is the one with the big titty ninja girls, right? I have Estival Versus, if that's the one. That was a franchise. Like every game was a hit. It was just fun cheesecake, you know. Not supporting them is easy. Yeah, it is. It's super easy. Just don't give them your money. It's super easy. Welcome, Matthias Nordblad. I already said that, I guess. Manga is a different beast because lots of anime series with heavy fan service are made by women. Yes, that's true. A lot of female artists in manga, but you know what? That doesn't matter. Like I said, the feminists will come for that anyway. They, you know, a woman is, they don't care about women, right? The thing is not about the thing. Like I said, they don't care about race. They don't care about sexuality. They don't care about gender. They don't care about any of that shit. It's just like, it's the mask they wear to get to your shit. I mean, look at how they unpersoned Gina Carano. That was like a woman that you could make the case for, I suppose, is kind of masculine because she's like this MMA fighter and like, you know, big muscle mommy of an actress, and they still threw her under the bus because she wasn't womaning right. I mean, look at where I work, Honey Badger Radio. The women there are not women, you know, so they certainly don't give a shit. Let me see. Lat QCD says, people that say gaming is for kids aren't doing so because of ignorance. They're doing it to shame men in the hobby because they want men to chain themselves to a woman and slave away for her. Yeah, I think that's right. Well, and that's a problem for that they're doing that because I think that a man would voluntarily, you know, like allow himself to be, I guess you could say, in a marriage with a wife if the woman was worthy and loved him and supported him. Like, you know, Lindsay lets me have like all my hobbies. She doesn't really obstruct me, and it makes me happy because that's like, this is how I support us anyway. But if I don't have that release, like, you know, I'm out, you know. Let me see. Matthias says, I'll probably buy the new Final Fantasy VII Remake when it goes on sale, but that's the only exception I'll make. Is Final Fantasy VII woke? You know what? I don't know if Square is on the list, so I'm gonna look though. They didn't make Senran Kagura woke, but they couldn't keep making it because of Sony censorship. Yeah, that's bullshit, man. Wasn't Senran Kagura on like Nintendo at first anyway? I thought it started there. Zerang says they care about what they claim to care about the second that they care about it, and not a second more, bigot. Yeah. For as long as they need to, which is about a second. Okay. Anyway, let's look at this. Founded in 2018, Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative development and consultation studio based in Montreal and working around the globe. Of course, they're based in Montreal. We knew that though, right? Canadians, am I right? Our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video games industry. That's the sentence right there. Our mission is to tell better, more empathetic stories while diversifying and enriching the video games industry. And Then the next sentence is also important. We aim to make games more engaging, more fun, more meaningful, and more inclusive for everyone. So in case there are some people here, because I shared links in the to this stream in the Discord for Sweet Baby Ink Detected, and if you're out there, what's up? Welcome to the stream, and be sure to talk to the arcade machine if you wish, and also, you know, use some coins rather, earn coins by sticking around and use them to talk to the bot and also activate some memes. But anyway, so these people always speak in like with double meaning words. Okay, there's what it sounds like they're saying, and then there's what they're actually saying. And I know you guys probably know this, but it's very important because there's going to be a lot of people, there already are a lot of people getting involved with this, and they don't know what like any of this is. They're like, I don't know who Sweet Baby is. Peter Wright messaged me. He's like, I don't know anything about the Sweet Baby business. And I told him, you know, it's basically feminists getting into the gaming industry via consulting firms. Okay, hold on. I'm just messaging. Shit. Hold on a second. Messaging Lindsay. She asked me, I dropped her off at her job, and where she works, there's like a little soup bar, and she asked me if I got any soup, and I did. I got lobster bisque, and it was delicious. It was delicious. One of the advantages of living in a state that's kind of, we're on the inside, you know, Southwest Virginia, but Virginia does touch the ocean, so there's some seafood here, and yeah, the lobster bisque was pretty damn good. Anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, so these people use words that have two meanings, okay? And when they say better, they mean better for them, not better in general, because obviously the stories are not better. More empathetic stories, that means that they're going to essentially condition you to treat the groups that they put in their content as special groups that need special privileges and special considerations. While diversifying, which means no white men, that's what it means. No white people and no men. And and the best outcome is no white men. But if they can minimize the number of white people and the number of men and the number of, I don't know, women that look like women and men that look like men, then they will do that. While diversifying and enriching, which is part of the same thing. It just sounds like they're making it richer, which they are absolutely not, because their projects are basically like colossal failures, and we're gonna look at that in a second. We aim to make games more engaging, more fun, and more meaningful. So when they say meaningful, again, it means they're gonna cram their politics into everything. And more inclusive, which means it's exclusive. Literally means exclusive. And not only, by the way, it's more than that, because when they say they're gonna like change things, it's almost always they're gonna put themselves in the product. It's always this very narcissistic, very vainglorious thing of, look at this representation, I'm gonna put myself in the game, and I'm gonna be, and they will literally do self-inserts. Okay, so I like how when you move the mouse around, this like turd watches you. It's like they're watching you, you know? Okay, so we believe you need diverse voices to solve diverse problems. Sweet Baby Inc. provides a narrative consultation at any stage of development, boasting a talented team with vetted industry experience to best bring your story to life. So they're telling you right off the bat, we should be prioritized because we belong to quote unquote diverse voices. Like, we have diverse voices. Diverse voices doesn't mean anything because they all believe the same shit. They all have the same politics. They all have the same belief systems. So their voices are not different. They just look different. And even then, that's irrelevant too, because people who look like them but don't share their voice, their opinions, are not considered diverse by their standards. Not the standards they're telling you the standards they actually believe. And I think it's very important that we understand that, because a lot of people will try to, you know, do like Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals things. Well, we're gonna hold you to your standards, and you're a hypocrite. Haha, gotcha. I'm black and I have an opinion that doesn't not line up with yours, but I'm diverse. Yeah, stop it. That's childish. It doesn't work. And in fact, it only benefits them. If you play by their rules, they win, because they already stacked the deck. They already constructed everything. And also what it does is it essentially creates a situation where people who have the best ideas but the wrong skin color or the wrong, you know, plumbing are not given a voice, because you are participating in the same language war. You have to stop doing that. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, if you have a straight white guy and he's got the best arguments, you're basically telling him that his arguments are as meaningless as the way that these people put it, because you're trying to use their tools against them. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, because these people don't care about hypocrisy. They care about power. That's what they care about. Okay? And they want to have it. That's all it is. Matthias says diversity, race, etc. doesn't mean what it does to normal people. Their own meaning is just their way of thinking and ideology and submission to it. That's correct. So, yeah, so when they say that, that's what they mean. And they have an outreach program. New and marginalized talent can change this industry if given the proper support. We want to provide this through our outreach programs. And that was another thing I wanted to mention. So, you guys know Grums? Okay. So Grums, I'm going to put him on the screen here. Old school GamerGate guy. He was, he used to work at Blizzard, and he was like the team lead for World of Warcraft, like the OG World of Warcraft, Diablo 2, StarCraft. You know, like, he was a game developer. He made some of the most classic games that people remember. So not a slouch in the department, okay? And Grums has been all over this thing, and he was all over GamerGate back in the day. But I don't know if he was, because like GamerGate, in case you guys don't know, again, if you don't understand, GamerGate was exactly what's going on right now. Hence this avatar, Vivian James, who is the GamerGate's daughter is Vivian James. She is GamerGate's little girl that we are trying to protect. So don't sexualize her. Okay. But anyway, so Grums was involved with GamerGate back in 2014, and he was very vocal, but I don't know if he was on the side of the ethics cucks, as I call them, or a lot of people call them, or the people who are really trying to fight the problem, which of course is like a much larger beast. I think the ethics is like one head of the Hydra, right? And if you cut off the head, two more will replace it, right? Two more will take its place. And this is what has happened. So, you know, in 2014, 2015, some of the most like loudest voices in GamerGate, which I think are just the people who happen to have the most amount of spare time to continuously make content and tweet about it. I got banned from Twitter, so I wasn't on there as much. But I was hosting like streams like every week, at least one stream a week, where it was called the Badger Pod GamerGate stream. And we would have, you know, Oliver Campbell on, and Ian Miles Chong was on. We had a lot of people. You know, we had, do you remember Nicole Sund? I think her name was, on Twitter, it was like something Vivian, and she was always wearing a Vivian James costume, like a cosplay. I can't remember her name. But anyway, lots of people. Jennifer Daw, who is a good friend of mine. I love her to death. She's also a game developer. She was friends with American McGee. And you guys know American McGee from the American McGee Alice games. You know, very involved, right? And I don't know what side of this Grums was on, but back then I was saying, look, you know, if we don't do something about the ideology, this won't be over. Like, you know, when Anita Sarkeesian's channel was closed, and you know, people were like, yeah, we got her, she's down. It's like, no, she still has a website where she does a podcast. And then the podcast was down. They were like, yeah, it's over, they're broke, that's the end. And I was like, no, you stupid ass, she works in the industry now. Like, this is they fail upwards, guys. They always fail upwards, and that that brings me back to this. The outreach. This is the thing that I think that we have to like start to actually try to consider a way to approach, okay? These people support each other financially, and they give each other, there's lots of nepotism. They're constantly boosting each other up. They're constantly trying to like get more people in their club. And the purpose is they're trying to get, like, they're basically trying to change the industry itself through nepotism. And this happens in other industries. I've already talked about how they did this in animation. And what they did was you had these unions, and they would work with these sort of like union affiliate groups, like Women in Animation. And the women in animation would be like, we have to get the industry to look at least 50-50. It was really, they really want it to be 100-0. You know, women's representation in the animation, you know, in the animation industry, because it's male dominated and that has to change, right? And so Women in Animation works with the unions, and they're like, you guys are, you know, sexist because you're not like putting up these people or whatever. And the unions, they cuck to them. And on top, this is why I don't like unions, by the way, because they're too easy to compromise, and they hold too much sway, and they don't necessarily benefit the worker. I'm sorry, Albert, but I'm right. And also, the other thing they did was they used the Me Too movement to essentially get a bunch of men fired. And they did do that. And they did this in the games industry too. They got a bunch of guys fired at Blizzard. And even though people are saying, well, the evidence does look pretty good, it's like, no, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Like, maybe those women shouldn't have been working there. Maybe they should only be hiring the best people and not the vaginas or the dark skins or whatever it is. Like, maybe you should just be getting the best people, you know? And so what I'm saying is that they're doing outreach, they're supporting their people. And what we have to do is figure out a way to do the same thing for our people. We have to support each other. We have to boost each other. We have to like, stop getting so like, I don't know, morally cowardly about like, oh man, so-and-so said something edgy or whatever. I don't think that is important, because what we're up against is a bunch of people that have no ethical qualms about shit. Like, they will do whatever it takes to control. So this is why I brought this up. I like Grums though, you know, he's like a good dude. I don't know if this is like I said, if this is gonna work out for him. But he has been pretty vocal. So he spoke to someone. I wanna, it's been taken down for some reason, or I can't find it. But let me see if I can find it here. That's Allison talking. I made a, oh look, I'm live. What am I, oh, what is this? I'm just kidding. That's the show we're doing right now. I said that this problem, I like this right here. I'm trying to find my post about it, because I think it's the point I'm trying to make. Oh yeah, it probably should be obvious to most of you, but Sweet Baby Inc. is only the tip of the iceberg. There are firms like them everywhere in every industry. It all has to go. And then I asked for people to give me other examples. Now, I did get, this is Johnny K PhD said Dragon Baby, which is like the localization team. I think there was like a big controversy about that. It kind of like it came and went. I think we should never forget though, because that's another thing. This is why I'm saying like anime isn't safe, not just because of localizers. And I know people have said, well, they're using AI now. That doesn't matter, man. Like, they're going to try to ban things. They're going to try and get in there. If somebody like gets into a position high enough to where they can, you know, essentially like, you know, call the shots on like what gets localized by AI and how, and even if it's in Japan, that'll change it. I'm telling you. You know, because that's what they do. They always go over your head to the next highest thing. So let's look at the games. All right. I talked about this already on another stream, but I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up. Maybe you can tell me. Yes, their website is very creepy. So Alan Wake 2. I heard Alan Wake 2 was bullshit because right from the start, you're not even playing Alan Wake anymore. You're playing some like woman of color in it. That's how you know right off the bat, right? Battle Shapers. I don't know what these are. I think I heard something about this Usual Jade thing. Let me see. So Usual Jade is one of their projects. As you can tell, you know, this woman right here, I think that's a self-insert. I think that's one of the people that works at Sweet Baby. She's not on this panel, but I went through a video where she was talking about like, oh, you know, I was like playing Mass Effect 2 or something, and I saw I was playing as I made a black female shepherd, and in the first scene of the game I like walk up to another woman of color and I'm talking to her and I'm like, wow, I never see this anywhere. Like that was her opening statement. It was just like, I don't see myself in stuff. I should see myself in stuff. It's pure unadulterated narcissism. That's all it is, dude. It's pure narcissism. And why do we humor it? We should not be humoring it. So, Usual Jade, I don't even want to read this. I understand that it's probably pretty cringe. There is a trailer. I guess I could look at it. Let's take a look at this trailer really quick. Hopefully I don't get dinged, but let's take a look.
And free. Just upload your video to Spotify for podcasters, and within a few clicks, it'll be live on Spotify for millions to see. And once you grow your show, Spotify's tools can help you benefit from it. Head to spotify.com/startupodcast to get your videos out there.
So is that the patriarchy? That guy standing in the eye right there. Oh God, yeah, that looks bad. I mean, it could be something, but hi, Raging Rat, not taking the risk. Yeah. All right. So that was Usual June, and we know they worked on Spider-Man 2, which I already talked about. You guys know everything that was wrong with Spider-Man 2, all of the bullshit, like side quests, the Mary Jane stuff, the Miles Morales stuff, and then God of War Ragnarok, which I don't know if David Jaffe will ever figure out that the reason why Kratos was changed fundamentally has to do with the fact that they hate him and what he created. That's what it's about. They'll never tell him. So here's a list of the studios, all right? So Valve is one of them. This is a bit worrying because they are the guys behind Steam, and the Steam group is there. So if they could ban them. I don't know if it'll happen, but they could ban them. And the only thing the Steam group, Sweet Baby Inc., what is it called again? I'm sorry. Detected? Sweet Baby Inc. Detected. The only thing that they are basically like doing wrong is listing the companies. That's all they're doing. Okay. Santa Monica Studio, that's God of War. 2K Games, I don't even know what they make anymore. Ubisoft, which I knew. So like when I first played the very first Assassin's Creed, which was a good game, don't get me wrong. There was like a disclaimer at the beginning that was like, this was made by a diverse team of different ethnic backgrounds, races, genders, and religious beliefs, you know. So I thought that was weird. I didn't need to know that, but Square Enix. So there you go. I understand that they did censor the Tifa thing and then they like restored it. But I think that you're right for waiting till this goes on sale. I played the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake when it was made available for free through PlayStation Plus. and I enjoyed it, but I'm like, I wouldn't have paid for it, you know? So, Squeenix, Warner Brothers. So I understand that they had an effect on not just the Rocksteady game, you know, Sushi Squad, but also on Mortal Kombat 1, which I didn't play because I was never a big fan of Mortal Kombat. So, Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that was another one that, so if you guys know, if you've played Mortal Kombat 1, you have any opinions on that, you know, let me know. Rocksteady, there's Rocksteady, okay. I don't know all of these compulsion games. I'm not sure who they are, what they do. Let's take a look. Oh, I remember. Okay, South of Midnight. We Happy Few. Not this game was, people were kind of excited for it, but it turned out wasn't so great. Contrast, I don't know. Looks interesting, conceptual. Let's see what True Love does. I'm curious now. I want to see these other. Luscious technologies for sharing power and building strength. Okay. We make the invisible visible. Astra Engine. Yeah, but do you have any games, motherfucker? You don't have any games? Okay, whatever. Thanks, True Love. Real appreciate it. Santa Monica. God of War is, I think that's all they have now, right? Yeah, I mean, like, I think that the God of War is really their only IP at this point. Now they're just talking about, oh, we're so in imagination, features stories, bro. 2K games? What do they got? Oh, sports? Well, I don't, how do you fuck that up? Marvel's Midnight Suns. Okay, so nobody cares. Polytron, what do you guys do? Let's see, what do these guys do? When I looked up Sweet Baby Inc., there was only 5 AAAs that I remember seeing that they had worked on. Okay. Oh, wait, Fez? Fez? Dude. Yes! Oh, shit. Well, okay. I'm not going to assume that Sweet Baby worked on Fez, because this is kind of an older game. But I do think that there is something really funny about Fez being on their list, or Polytron being on their list, right? Or is it Compulsion? I don't remember. I think that's interesting. Metric Empire, Battle Shapers. So these are like first games, and it's okay. Like, you're just trying something new. I assume most of these are like probably pretty new. What's Remedy? Is these are the Alan Wake people, right? Yeah. I played Control. I don't know what, like, I played Control and I liked it. I don't know if it was supposed to be woke. I know that the main character, the woman you play in that game, is really masculine looking, and I thought that was off-putting and weird. But I didn't find that there was a lot, but I don't know. I never played Alan Wake, so I don't get the connection, because it's, I guess, Control, it takes place in the same universe as Alan Wake, but it's like a different game, you know? Okay. So we know that they do outreach and all that. I want to watch some of this video, Sweet Baby. At the same time, while I'm at that, I want to see if anyone, it's another announcement here, posting anime photos and memes. Okay, there's an anime PNG chat. Okay. I wanted to see if anyone was online. It looks like nobody is. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna watch some of this video, and then I might play a little Devil May Cry for a little while. I gotta go soon-ish, so I might not get a chance to actually. Companies often list involvement with other companies to boost their reputation, even if they haven't done much of anything. That's true, yeah. Even if they're just in talks about doing stuff, right? Valve is probably there for some random project and or the occasional theme sale, like the Latinx one. Oh god. Please don't call us that. You guys know the guy who started the Sweet Baby Inc. Detected thing is a Brazilian guy. The Latinos, man, we're like the secret ingredient. I'm telling you, we're like the extra spice. Control is better than Quantum Break, whatever that means. I never played Quantum Break. that the one that was like had a lot of live action in it or something? I don't even know. Control was okay. I liked it. I did finish the game, but I never went back to it, so I don't know what that means. But anyway, let's play some of this.
And kind of tell you a little bit about how we came to be, what we do, and kind of how we got to here, with a hope of kind of talking through our work methods, our strategy, and our vision, and kind of how it's gotten us to this point as a kind of unusual company. So to start out with, we just wanted to answer the question, who is Sweet Baby Inc? And have you meet the baby, which may look surprisingly like a large collection of adults. So Sweet Baby begins with kind of our vision and our mission. We are a fully self-funded narrative consulting company and narrative development company, and our goal overall is to tell better stories. We want to make stories in games better. We want to tell them better. We want to help teams understand, the complexities of narrative design and how they can tell better stories. And we also want to make them more innovative, more inclusive as kind of part of that. We started off in 2018 after both of us as co-founders did a bunch of years in the industry that we'll talk about a little bit later. And we have grown to be a team of 16 people from starting at 3 in 2018. We really work hard to not only do the work that we do in narrative and in storytelling, but also to help marginalized talent break into the industry, sustain careers in the industry, and navigate the industry, because it's a very, very challenging one. And as creative workers, we're always very conscious of how much of our humanity is involved in these kinds of this kind of work, and how much that needs protection if we're going to be able to do the best kind of work. So there's a lot of different stuff that we're tackling with an aim to kind of change the way we think about narrative development and change narrative development moving forward. I'll introduce myself first and then hand over to David. I am Kim Belair. I'm a writer and a narrative designer, a narrative director, and team lead of lots of different titles that I wear, but they're all underneath.
Yeah, but what are your pronouns, though? Tell us your pronouns.
My prior experience, I worked at Ubisoft. I worked at another company after that, and was always internal, but in 2018 kind of made the decision to both leave games and not leave games, leave in working internally in games and kind of start my own thing and see if I could kind of do the creative work and work with games without being in that same position. David?
Yeah, hi, I'm David. I'm the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc. Much like Kim, I worked at Ubisoft and IDOS before that. A lot of time in games marketing, and after we met on a project together, and Kim had this great project of like leading internal gigs and sort of founding this company that is aiming to work differently as an external partner for all these wonderful game projects. Decided to take the leap and become a COO. So since then, COO is sort of the abbreviation of like the 15 hats I wear every day at work. So it goes from narrative design to creative direction to production and everything in between. But yeah, worked on Sleeping Dogs, Deus Ex, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and since then, since Sweet Baby, worked on Sable and made a bunch of games for Playdate, for Panic, and a bunch of other titles. We'll go through all of that later.
Yeah.
That's me.
We also, of course, work with a phenomenal team of a variety of different people. We think it's a really, really unique team, and obviously all teams are unique in that way. And I think what we really pride ourselves on is having a really, truly multidisciplinary crew of creatives from across different industries. We have writers, authors, narrative designers, producers.
Look at that. Look, it looks like the staff at like a fucking Mac store. Except there's no like, oh yeah, there is a guy with a beard. There has to be a guy with a beard. A bald guy with a beard, yeah. Yeah, this looks like the staff of a Mac store. Although pretty white. I don't know, man. I see a lot of white faces. Probably too much pale, stale, and male for my taste.
There's at least one chef who also does narrative design with us, some artists, and it's really important for us to be thinking about that and to think about how we approach that. And we really, really value the fact that like all these different people working together are able to work as a team on many different projects, see different challenges, solve them together, and as such, everyone I think on this team, beyond just the sweet baby of it all, are becoming kind of industry leaders and really powerful thinkers and workers in their own right. And together we have worked on, just kind of give a sense of it, like a ton of different projects. Some of our clients are pictured on the next slide. Here we just worked with a lot of different people in a lot of different capacities. We do everything from kind of script writing to narrative direction to sensitivity and representational.
Xbox is on the list.
We do.
It wasn't on the other one.
Workshops, script doctoring.
Wizards of the Coast.
Touches story, we'll do it, and we've done it for a.
This is 5 months ago, so maybe they've grown. Maybe they've now added people, but their website isn't up to date. Wizards of the Coast is D&D.
A lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
So there's Wizards of the Coast, Nerial, I don't know who that is. Xbox Studios, Electronic Arts. Actually, I wonder if they worked on Star Wars Jedi Survivor, because I played Jedi Fallen Order. I liked it a lot. I tend to like, Souls-likes as well as kind of like Uncharted adventure games, and Jedi Fallen Order was a bit of both because it had like traversal mechanics and it had like, some soul. I wouldn't say it's a Souls-like, but it has some elements of that. I thought it was really good. And it was a single player experience, which in, like Western game development it was really unusual. That it wasn't like some kind of multiplayer co-op thing. Not co-op, but multiplayer like PvP, or some kind of like gigantic open world, collect-a-thon, like everything Ubisoft makes now, or Rockstar. Rockstar was, I think, also Rockstar also is part of them. I might be wrong about that. I feel like somebody on Twitter or somebody in the Sweet Baby Discord shared something about it. And I gotta say, I wouldn't be surprised because GTA probably gets the most flack, like from worry warts. It was like Grand Theft Auto and Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat back in the day, but like still to some degree, right? But GTA for sure. And I think that one of the reasons why I suspect that there is some of that, and it might not be Sweet Baby, it might be some different, consulting firm or some different woke philosophy that's in the studio. But one of the reasons why I think there is something like that is because of Red Dead Redemption 2. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 has some things in it that are pretty suspicious. If you are trying to play an authentic, old Wild West type of game, the setting is pretty modernized and it doesn't feel, like it doesn't feel right. Like I tried to watch, as another example of this, I got into the show Deadwood for a little while, and I think I got like a couple seasons in, and I got like really into the show, right? And I did like it a lot, but then I decided to look into the actual history of the characters that are in this show, and the changes the show makes some of them are just like, I think it's just really obvious, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Deadwood. I might go into this another time, but yeah, well, Forspoken was so bad, Square Enix disbanded the studio. Yeah, I guess well, they must have. I mean, it was a very bad game. And a lot of people are trying to like cope with that. Like there's a lot of cope online about how, Forspoken wasn't rejected because of its wokeness. It was rejected because of, and then they're like making other excuses like, it had bad writing. It was released at a bad time or whatever. I don't know. Because I guess like something else came out around the same time that was more successful, but I don't think that's true. It's like the same thing with Suicide Squad. They try to make the excuse that Suicide Squad was a failure, and they're making all these excuses, and one of them is that, games as a service is bad, but like Helldivers 2 is games as a service, and that is fucking huge. It's huge. They didn't update it to protect the feminist. Matthias Norblad says, I really dislike Mortal Kombat because of how sadistic the fatalities are, but you know what I do? I don't play it or watch gameplay of it. I wish more people just did that with things they don't like. Well, yeah, but there are people who just can't help themselves. Matthias Norblad says, Baldur's Gate 3 was good despite some of the woke elements, but I wonder if SBI had their hands on that. No, they did not, but I agree with you. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is the gameplay itself is so good that I forgive, well, I wouldn't say I forgive the woke crap. It gets on my nerves, but fortunately, the game lets me, just like, I don't have to go along with any of it. Like, if they're like, oh, you want to fuck this bear? I'll be like, no, I think I'll just kill him. And that's what I did. Like, they try to play that, like, moral relativist bullshit with me, and I'm just like, no, these are goblins. I'm gonna kill them. Like, they're goblins. Goblins are bad. We're gonna kill them. They're not just... Like it's like they don't understand the difference between evil and rude, because that's what it is. When you play Baldur's Gate, the goblins are rude to you. They're just like, hey, or maybe they'll try to shake you down for something, like Tiny Lester in Friday. What you got on my 40? Like that, they'll just try to shake you down for something, and it's like, no, that's not goblins. Like goblins are vicious. They are vicious and they are sadistic. They worship a god named Magulbiet, I think it's pronounced, who lives in hell. Like, they are evil, right? They're not rude. But of course, these people do think rudeness is evil. That's why they hate the Orange Man, because he's rude, he's mean on Twitter. Like, that's how they think goblins are. Goblins are mean on Twitter, Like, no. Those are trolls, actually. But anyway, let's play a little bit more.
But I think before we kind of start talking about the story of us, in order to kind of contextualize it and make it relevant / interesting, let's just talk through what it is that we do and how we do it right now.
Oh yeah, now it gets good.
Kind of our history and the learnings that we've had as a kind of unique right now team.
LaQCD says, Evil Goblin, hey sexy lady, can I have your number? That's close, but you got to put it in like a Cockney, kind of like country English, like, oi, pretty lady, can I have your number? You got to say it like that.
Moving through an industry that is always full of chaos.
Right. So as Kim said, contextualizing what we do right now every day, and that goes from like services we offer all the way to like things we do that are like, I don't know, if companies could have some.
No, I thought these people were tech people, but this presentation is boring as fuck. You see what I'm saying? Like, does not look nice. It's not slick. Look at what I've done. Look at this. I got like a fucking 3D background. I got an animated Vivian James. I got live chat over here. I got JoJo up in the upper corner there, chilling the fuck out. Look at JoJo, by the way. And they just got like, what is this? A fucking PowerPoint? Like they're just going through slides on StreamYards. This is boring as fuck.
Soft skills. We'll go through ours and kind of talk through like the different ways we try to operate in this industry that has many different ways of operating with it. So the first thing we do is obviously we have services. We call it a narrative development company. So of all the terms we could have come up with, I think it's the one that encompasses everything we do. We do everything that we can touch on everything that like has to do with narrative within development of games. We don't necessarily always plug into only the narrative team. We sometimes are the narrative team, or sometimes we'll come and like work with designers to shore up some of their systems to be able to help narrative. And so we see every part of a game, and we're able to talk with artists and audio designers and game designers and system designers and economy designers just to figure out like how to better tell the story and get the creative direction and the feeling of the game better through all the things that they're all doing. So obviously the first thing that you think of when you hear all of that is narrative direction. That's a role we sometimes occupy on projects in AAA and or indie. The way we work is a bit unique, and we'll go through it later, but we never bring only one person to a project. It's not like Kim will be a narrative director on this project and then the 16 other people here don't do anything else. We'll come to a project with, oftentimes we'll start a project with everybody in the room, all 16 of us, so you can get as much perspective as you can, and then we'll build a team of the people who have the most affinity with the project, and they'll all work together as sort of a writer's room, plugging into a project and figuring out the best way to tackle it, and to split tasks among themselves to kind of like arrive at the output of like one person or a couple of people, but made from many different perspectives and skill sets, which is, you know, really our strength. And so when we're the only narrative team on the project, and this is the kind of work we do, we kind of like, it is sort of a narrative direction position that we occupy within the project. The next two things, narrative design and script writing, tend to be something that is mostly the regular project work that we do.
This is boring as fuck. I'm sorry, guys. Let me jump ahead to something
years,
else.
4 months.
He's going really technical. I don't care about that. I want to hear the ideological shit.
Running into some mistakes that we see a lot of people running through. There's a lot of like closed circuits in the industry. People don't necessarily share, oh, we ran into this problem, because there's like, you know, games are being marketed. You don't want to say that it was tough to make the game necessarily. But what that means is that you join a project and you don't not necessarily able to speak to a way you shouldn't be doing things that you know isn't going to work. And so what we try to do is bring some of that expertise, bring some of that perspective from different projects, and you know, we'll think like
I'm going to jump ahead to another part. I think I see something about
it'd be great if they
diversity here.
follow through on this
So,
and make sure people
there's Sushi Squad
and create a community in this industry. We believe that
Okay.
diversity is
Here we go.
one of the best vectors for innovation in the games industry that people too often ignore. Like I said before, we try to be additive in our approach. So we don't show up to a project and say, hey, these are all the problems, you're going to mess up if you do all these things this way. What that ends up doing is oftentimes that we'll sand it down and make something inoffensive and oftentimes honestly kind of boring, and kind of like too smooth. And so instead we try to go about it from an additive perspective, where we want to bring joy to the player. If you're a player from a marginalized background and you see yourself represented accurately on screen, and you see a part of yourself that you've never seen on a screen, you'll get tremendous joy from that. And
No.
that's the same
bullshit, dude. What are you talking about? Why is like this is you know what this does, by the way? I just want to point this out. Maybe we'll come back and do more of these another day this week. What this does is you are essentially training people when you tell them, I'm giving this to you because you're a minority and you are marginalized. And what you're doing is training them for dissatisfaction, because what they're going to do is they're going to look at every example of themselves supposedly being represented, and they're going to find problems with that because you're training them to nitpick that. And I can give you a perfect example. Miles Morales in this game, Spider-Man 2, they gave him the really popular, for some fucking reason in media, short dreadlock haircut thing. And there are lots of, you know, people complaining about it because their hair isn't represented. So like what happens is it like it ends up becoming becoming more and more specific in terms of representation, which is already happening. So like, you know, on one hand it was just like, well, we just want to see women, not that women weren't always represented, but there'll be people say we need more women representation. And then they're like, we're going to give you more women representation. And then they're going to say, well, we need more women of color representation. And they'll give you women of color. And then they get specific on that. Oh, we need more. What does Starfield have a disproportionate number of? Australian Aboriginals? Because they wanted to get specific? How about Baldur's Gate 3? Why is there a vitiligo skin slider? What? Why? Like what like how many people have vitiligo, and how many of those people play Baldur's Gate, and how many of those people want to see themselves represented in Baldur's Gate with a certain amount of vitiligo, you know, like pigmentation? Like it gets more and more specific. So you get, oh, I don't want to be a black guy with you know, like a fade. I want to be a black guy with a kid in play box. I want to be a black guy with the Little Wayne dreadlocks. I want to be a black guy with you know, mystical dreadlocks, whatever. I want to be a black guy that's just bald. I want whatever. Like, and then it just gets more and more specific. I want to look like fucking Colin Kaepernick, you know? And it's because like, you're training people to need to see themselves in media. I have never, ever in my life, ever needed anybody to look like me or anyone I knew for that matter. I usually just got creative in different ways, you know? And it's so like, it's so condescending to tell people like me, because that's who they're talking to. I know that in this example, it's a black guy. Well, Miles is half Puerto Rican though, but nonetheless, you know, telling people like me that like I'm supposed to feel something when they put me in something. Like I'm sorry, I'm not that narcissistic. I don't know if that's a Gen X thing. I hope it's not. I hope it's like a normal person that has like a healthy mental state that doesn't need this shit. But yeah, I mean, like what are you gonna do? This is another thing too. Like how is this going to damage games being developed in the future? For example, what if you're playing a game where you are a trademark character like Mario or Link? Right now they're not even thinking about changing that. But what if they do? What if later they're like, yeah, you know, Mario, like we have enough Italians in games. We're gonna make him a different race. We're gonna make him, you know, fucking from Sri Lanka or something. We're gonna make him a Malaysian guy, you know, because there aren't enough Malaysians represented, you know, in video games. What if they change Samus into like a trans person? They've already said that they've already tried to make the claim that Samus is trans a few times, even though like the idea that you didn't know it was a woman till the end of the first game, it means nothing, but they'll use it. They don't care. What about if you're playing as, you know, things that are not even human, like animals or robots or golems or whatever? Like, you know, I know that these games are dead, but like if they ever brought back Okami, you know, if I remember correctly, Amaratas is the wolf is a female. No, I never gave a shit. I liked the game. Like it didn't even occur to me that that was important, you know. But what if they're like, well, you know, I mean, as a goddess, they could be like non-binary or something, you know, or well, I don't like that the wolf is white. You know, let's change the color. What if they do that to, again, like robots or characters that are faceless, like in Helldivers? Everyone's wearing helmets. You don't know who's under the mask. Now, it could be a way to get around the diversity thing, but people are going to start like these people, they're going to start demanding to know. Like, oh, well, are there any, I mean, we can't hear them, but they all sound pretty white, you know, like based on their voices. So I don't know. This always annoyed the shit out of me. Welcome, Roxy, to the show. You have been awarded some coins. You better not be spamming, otherwise you're out. But welcome to the show nonetheless. Samus is Chozo-kin. Samus is an ethnic Kazakh, they, them. That's another thing too, is that like, you know, that's funny that like it's Starfield, right? I heard about this thing with the Australian Aborigines in Starfield. And I was like, when does this game take place? Like, is it the year 2525? In the year 2525, if man is still alive, if woman can survive, they may find. If it takes place in the year 25 something, why would anyone, like, why would there even still be races at all? Why would it matter? Why wouldn't we all just be like mixed as fuck? Why would the Australian Aborigines specifically have like fucking their population exploded? Like, is there lore that explains that? I'd like to know. I don't know. I'd like to know. Samus of 9 is a Borg. I can't believe even Google AI is woke. When search up World War II German soldiers and George Washington, they are all not white. Yes, they aren't. That is true. Nova Fan says someone actually claimed God is a non-binary because of the words referencing him are different genders. Question is, isn't this just grammar like Spanish? Yeah, but also the people who make those claims, they don't believe in God anyway, so why do we care what they think? Like these like atheists that tell you what God is, they just should be slapped in the face. The fact that you're spending your energy talking about something you don't actually care about is weird to me. Like it's kind of pathetic. Yeah, the racist left. Well, Google's ideology is baked in because the people who program Google have an ideological bias, so that is what it is, you know. Anyway, so yeah, I never understood that, and I don't really think it's why they do it anyway. I think the thing is not about the thing, you know, as I've said in the past. I think it's just about the revolution. So they will use whatever tools they can get their hands on to make this happen. All right, let's play a little bit more. I don't think I'm gonna do any gaming today, guys. I might change this title if it's in there, but
kind of goal that you might want from like a design, a game design system, which also brings joy to the player. It's the same sort of like output, but from a very different discipline. Yeah, we believe that game stories as they are now have lots of room to evolve and change, and we're at the forefront of like making stories more diverse and helping push these boundaries forward. It's all meaningful growth for us. Throughout all of this, we also do a lot of outreach. And so
the outreach is basically just nepotism. I can tell you that right now. What's this? We don't want to work like that anymore. What's that about? Take a look. Oh. Ah, this is interesting. Let's figure out what this is about.
And that was tough. I've talked about that very publicly. It's surprised to hear that, but our origin and kind of where we're at today and where we 2013 and being a Black woman in the industry, being a marginalized person in these spaces has not always been easy. In fact, it's been downright abusive at times. And
here's the self-insert.
I'm sure that no one in this room is any.
Yeah, this is the self-insert. So that's her right there. If you guys can see it in the picture there, she is the self-insert for that game that I was looking at. Usual Jude. I bet that's what it is. I bet that's her self-insert. Same hair.
Is it surprised to hear that? But there is so much abuse, so much toxicity, so much awfulness in the industry, and that was how I kind of came through it for the first several years of my career. But at the same time, what I want to say is that like I learned a tremendous amount. I first started it for 5 years in AAA. I worked on Assassin's Creed, on Far Cry, on a couple of games at Ubisoft, and that was tough. I've talked about that very publicly. I've talked about that in a number of forums. And the thing that always gets me is that while it was hard and dealing with all of that stuff is always difficult, it was also hugely informative, and it was beautiful still to work with teams of creative to make something that matters to us and to get something out in the world and experience it. The joy of making games and telling stories is something that for me has not been in any way separable from the experience of how we make them. And
no shit. So apparently, I want to see what her bullet list is, but it says redacted. So she was at a abusive game studio A, then an abusive transmedia studio B, and she was experiencing pressure, toxicity, misogyny, racism, etc. But also bad production, bad output, eternal development hell, the myth of the pressure cooker. I tried so hard and got so far. In the end, it doesn't even matter. So let's hear her talk about that. She's Black. Yeah, I think she's mixed. You know the most angry Black activists for some reason are almost always mixed. Almost always mixed. And I think I have to see the data on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were mixed insofar as their mama was white and their papa was Black and their papa was not involved with them. That would be my guess. Not necessarily because the dad is a deadbeat. It could be because the mom kept them apart for whatever reason, or he wasn't involved. She just, for whatever reason.
After years and all of this, and I finally left to go to a transmedia company. It was also working in games, and there we had a very, very unusual role. David actually joined me after a few months at this company, and we ended up working together on this transmedia project that required us to essentially, over 5 years, write a story that would be told across 15 to 20 different pieces of media. And we had to do all of that in about 8 months together. And while we were working on that, that was a role that, while again, really not an easy or pleasant place to work, made me realize something. And it was that working with very different teams, sometimes in film, in television, in podcasts, in books, in all of these different arenas, we started to see a pattern forming. And that pattern was simply like,
what is it?
People who were easy to work with, people who were kind and compassionate, who saw the humanity in the work that we do. It wasn't just a matter of like, oh, they're better to work with. The productions were smoother, the products were better, and things actually came to exist from those things. And I think there's this myth in the game. In fact, I know there's this myth in the games industry, and I hope that it's dying now.
Oh, wait, she didn't mention the toxicity and the racism and the misogyny, though.
You know, if you really put a lot
I want to know about that. Can I hear about the misogyny and the racism?
We worked together with so many different teams, seeing so many different projects and trying to like get them together. It was very clear that wasn't the case, because we saw that like the pressure cooker was just creating burnout. It was just creating misery. And as much as we want to pretend in a lot of corporate spheres that production plans and financial realities are the framework of real game design, production plans are made of and by people. And so when people are not happy, when people are being abused, when people are being disempowered, it's not something that we can now just drag everybody through, and you start to see things fall apart very, very quickly. And if that was true, then it meant that we didn't have to work this way, and we could kind of think differently. But the real thought I think that we first had was simply just like, we don't want to work like that anymore. And what that means for us, at least, was we love...
Oh, God. All right. So she doesn't even like address... This is another thing that these people do. I don't know if you noticed. They make allegations of sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, whatever it is, you name it. And they don't say who did it. They're very vague. They just put the allegation on the table. They don't address it any further, and they just expect you to respond. So she put in her bullet points, I experienced toxicity, racism, sexism, etc., misogyny, whatever, etc. And in the talk about that card that she put up on screen, she didn't go into any detail. She didn't name any names. She didn't give any examples. She didn't say anything except that this guy was the only friend I made, which, you know, maybe he's just a simp. Maybe he was just like, whatever you like, you know, my queen, I will serve, which there's plenty of simps in every industry. Not surprising. But she just didn't follow up. There was nothing else. So we're just supposed to what? Just sit with that. And just what? Say it's true? No, can't challenge it. Can't ask questions. Can't delve any deeper. No, okay. So this woman, who I believe is the head of this company, or Sweet Baby Inc., she is operating in the world under an assumption that she is marginalized and targeted based on her identity, and that she is going to essentially take it out on the rest of the gaming industry or whatever industry she can get into. Frankly, being that she's a story consultant, I wouldn't be surprised if she wants to really like go into something like film or television or something like that, because that's where you can focus more on story, and gaming just so happens to be the largest entertainment industry, like by fucking leagues, orders of magnitude. And so she's like, well, this is where more people are watching, so I'm going to be involved. But I bet if Sweet Baby goes under, she's just going to end up like going somewhere else. That's why I'm saying, like, if we can reject the ideology itself flat out, not a product, not like a studio, but the ideology itself from our minds, from our consciousness. We have to start by understanding what their language is, the words they use, you know, how they get into your spaces, and we reject it outright. And we only, and actually a lot of it has to do with just propping up the stuff you do like that doesn't have this. Like Helldivers 2 is making people, you know, just go nuts everywhere. I'm gonna move up so you guys can so I can, you know, see you more clearly. Helldivers 2 is triggering people left and right because it's successful, it's making bank, it's getting a lot of reach, and it's pissing people off because it doesn't. So because the thing is with these people, they're not that concerned with profits. I mean, they get money from BlackRock and Vanguard and like these big donors, you know, because these people want to also assist in the engineering of society, but they already come from very privileged backgrounds. Like I bet you anything that woman is loaded or her family is loaded and she's got a trust fund or something. And I know that she would say because she's a woman of color, you know, like I don't know, people follow her around in the convenience store or something, and that's basically the same as being destitute, you know, or barely getting by like me. But these people are not interested in money. They're interested in clout, influence, and power. And so that's what they're really after. And like if they can change the face of the games industry, film industry, schooling, education, politics, culture, that's like where the biggest high comes from, I think. And what we have to do is we have to free ourselves mentally from that, you know, by basically being able to identify it when it happens and then just avoid it. And more than that, promote the stuff that we do like. Going back to what I was saying about Helldivers 2, and I guess to some degree Baldur's Gate 3, but I think that Baldur's Gate 3 has enough wokeness in it that they can like take credit for that, and it still kind of gives them a boost because, you know, these people don't really consider individual achievements. They look at group achievements like, oh, we are doing this thing, right? But Helldivers 2 is unabashedly like, you know, not those things. Like, I mean, the guys that work there might be, you know, I know that Spoon, the aristocratic utensil, I think his name is, made a video. I didn't watch it. He probably would make the case that the developers at Arrowhead Studios are not based. I'm, you know, I wouldn't think they were. I think that if anything, there are some people that are just really passionate about projects. Like they just want it to look the way that they envisioned. And I think that those are more likely going to be men because, they're not as like prone to this kind of like ideological capture. So I can give a couple of gaming examples. I think the guys behind, you know, like Resident Evil, Biohazard, Resident Evil 7, maybe Resident Evil Village, and the remakes, like at least the Resident Evil 2 and 4, they just really wanted to make a good game and they wanted to honor the original IPs for the remakes, right? I think that the guys with Helldivers just want to make a fun cooperative experience. They didn't want to do what everyone else was doing. They wanted to do something new in terms of gameplay, and I think they succeeded at that. I think that I even think that the guys, you know, that there's probably other examples of this that you guys can share, but because a game like Helldivers 2 is at like or Stellar Blade, which is going to be coming out, you know, because those things are getting so much exposure and so much hype, that's what really pisses off people like the activists, like Lego Butts, like the people over at Sweet Baby Inc. That's what really pisses them off, because then they're not getting all of the attention. They're not the center of attention. And that's what it is, you know? So be a part of Sweet Baby Inc. Join the Steam group, join the Discord, do your part. Do your part and help boost. Like if you find a game that's non-woke or whatever and you want to boost it and tell me about it. Tell me about it, because I'm gonna play it on here. But I'm not gonna do any gaming today because I gotta wrap it up. I gotta feed the dog, feed myself, and I got to get ready for tonight's show. So that'll be it for this one. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notification, leave me a comment, let me know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today, and please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thanks guys for hanging out with me on Honey Badger Arcade, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.